Hi everybody, welcome to my video all about the ZWO ASIAIR Pro. Now, First Light Optics have been good enough to send me this to trial and see how I get on with it, and I've had it probably about 3 months now. Not had overly successful weather to test it out, but I have had a few goes at it and it's a game changer. It is really going to benefit me in my online presence, being able to webcast stuff out to anybody on meetings, on educational purposes and all sorts of stuff. So it's going to be an absolute boon. So thanks to First Light Optics for sending that through to me and letting me have a go. And so far it's fantastic. I love it. A few quibbles, but I'll tell you about those as we go, as I get to grips with it a little bit more. So there it is. It's a little red box. It's about the size of a cigarette packet, but it's everything. It replaces a computer, laptop or whatever, so you don't need anything else attached to your scope or your mount. It does everything for you. Here it is attached to the side of a Sharpstar 76mm telescope. So here it is here on the side of the telescope, just fits into a finder shoe, and it runs everything. It will run the automatic focuser, it will run your guide camera, it'll run your filter wheel, and it'll run your main imaging camera. But we'll come to what cameras it supports in a little while. It's got a 12-volt power input, so if your mount like mine, I've got an EQ6, it just plugs directly into that and will run from the 12-hour power supply that you've got with the mount. But you need to make sure that your mount power supply is strong enough to be able to operate it correctly. When I originally set the ASIAIR up a few months ago, I tried to run it from the power supply that I've had for my mount for many years, and it made a horrible clicking noise when I connected the mount to it and tried to run it, and that was because the mount wasn't quite beefy enough to support both. So you need to make sure you've got a suitable power supply to run both if you're going to run them both off the same power supply. Of course, you could have one for your ASIAIR and one for your mount, but that's entirely up to you. Using this, I only have one cable coming out of the shed, plugs into the 12-volt DC, and then the power supply comes off there for the mount and everything else as well. So it makes it nice and easy. Less wires to trip over in the dark. It's got the switch, obviously, to switch it on and off. It's got a power light just in here. When that comes on, you know it's switched on. It's also got a micro SD card in there. See my other YouTube video on how to back that up using Windows. And when it's read that successfully, you'll get a light in there. We've also got a Wi-Fi light there, so once it's connected to the Wi-Fi or ready for something to connect to its Wi-Fi, that light will come on and be ready to connect. And then just above that, if you get real problems with your Wi-Fi and you've set it wrong, you can't connect to it, by pressing that button for a number of seconds, you should be able to reset it back to factory settings on the Wi-Fi, so you can reset it again. On the side of the unit, there are 4 12-volt DC power points, so you can run all sorts of things off there. As I said, you can power the mount off there. You can also power a camera, so if you've got a Pro camera, it will run directly off one of those power ports. Some people have said that it creates a lot of noise when they download their images, but I don't think that's too much of a problem. The other thing to be aware of, that you can run dew heaters off those as well, and when you run those, you can actually vary the amount of voltage going through them, so you can adjust how hot or not the dew heaters are, so you can set them so they don't overheat too much while you're using them. They have to be switched on within the app, and I'll take you through the app in another review at some point. But that's great, being able to run all those things off the one unit. It's also got this camera shutter release, so you can connect that to your DSLR and it will do timed exposures for you. And if you've got the cable to go from the DSLR to one of the USB ports, it will also download the images from the camera as well. It's also got 4 USB ports here. So there's 2 USB 3 ports and 2 USB 2 ports there as well. So you can connect your accessories, your mount using EQDIR cable, etc., into those ports. You've also got a LAN port, so a network port built in there. So if you're really having problems with the Wi-Fi, you can run a network cable from that to your main network and it will connect just using the cable rather than the wireless. It can be a little bit flaky. Some people have complained that the metal case of the ASIAIR Pro is actually restricting the strength of the signal both from the unit itself and picking up the Wi-Fi externally. I've found it drop out a couple of times, but I've now resolved that by getting my wireless connection a little bit closer. But you can connect it to the wired LAN if you have real problems doing that. Okay, so what does the ASIAIR Pro do? It controls your accessories, as I said. It will also tell you if you're polar aligned. Actually, that's not anything that I've used yet. Since I've had it, I've not used it. I just align mine roughly on Polaris and I just let it get on and do its thing. I don't bother to see if it's properly polar aligned, and I'm getting some great images. It'll also help with focusing as well, and that is fantastic. It also locates objects go to, so it's full go to, it will go to positions, and then it plate solves. So it takes an image, it then works out exactly where it's pointing, and then knows exactly where it's pointing, and then moves to the object that you want, centers it in the field of view. Fantastic, absolutely wonderful. And then once you get there, you can set up the guiding, so it's auto guiding as well. So your images are spot on and there's no star trailing at all in any of your images. It does live stacking. Again, it's not anything I've done yet, but you can tell it to take a number of images and it will stack those as you're watching on the screen. And it images with ZWO cameras. So if you've got any other type of cameras, it won't work with them. Okay, so any of these astronomy cameras, it only works with ZWO cameras. That's probably a big drawback, but I think that's a selling point because I think they want to sell their cameras as well. So, you know, anyway. But it does work with a number of DSLRs. So if you've got a DSLR, it will also work with that as well. And there are a number of models of camera that have been tested with it. I've got a D750 Nikon, and that works really well, although I've not really used it with that very much. I've just put it on to try it out and it does work and it does download the images. So have a look there and see if the camera that you've got will be compatible and been tested with the ASIAIR Pro. So running the ASIAIR Pro, well, it's really mainly to be used either on a smartphone or on a tablet and iPad. So you download the app, pop it on your phone or tablet, iPad, whatever, and then you run it from there, connect to the Wi-Fi, and away you go. But the thing that really hooked me was the fact that I can run it from my PC. So if I'm sitting here on my computer, I can run it from a PC and I can connect to it and operate it remotely, even though it's only, you know, a couple of 100 yards away in the garden. I can control it from in here so that I can live view out to the world and show people images live off the telescope. But you do need an Android emulator. What this does, it runs Android within it, and then you download your apps and things into the emulator. And there's a couple that I've used. The one I prefer is LD Player. That works really well, and there's a lot less advertising with that one than the other one that I've used, which is called BlueStacks as well. They both work really well, but having used both now, I prefer LD Player. And what you do, you connect the ASIAIR Pro to your home Wi-Fi and then open the Android emulator. And once you do that and you install the app, so here's ASIAIR and here's Sky Safari 6 that I've installed on the emulator. So this is LD Player running here. If you go into System Apps, you go into the App Store, search for the apps, just like you do on an Android phone. I don't use Apple, so I can't comment on Apple, but definitely for Android you can do that. Of course, it doesn't matter if you're using a PC and want to use it on a PC, just use the Android player and then download the ASIAIR app and then run it from in there. There are some annoying features. The app's opening image is bright white. If you're out observing or taking images of the night sky, you don't want a bright white screen popping up on your phone. So that's annoying. If you're an imager, perhaps it doesn't bother you, but if you're out somewhere else and there's lots of people who are observing, they're not going to want your phone or tablet or computer screen popping up with a great big white screen as you start up the app. But there you go, that's the first annoying one. The other one is a loud beeping. When you turn it on and turn it off, it beeps and it's really loud. I have heard some people say that it sounds to be a little bit more muted in the latest updates, but I haven't really noticed that yet. And this loud beep, you're meant to be using this out in the dark at night time when all your neighbours are asleep. So if it's beeping loudly, it could wake them up and wonder what you're doing out there. I mentioned the weak Wi-Fi signal. Some people have complained about that. It's dropped off a couple of times for me now, but I've resolved that by moving the wireless antenna a bit closer to where I use it in the garden. The opening screen as well, which I'll show you in a moment, and it only runs ZWO astronomy cameras. It does do DSLRs, but only ZWO cameras. So here's the opening screen, and again, all the information about your location and the main scope. You put in the focal length of your main scope. Let's pop that out of the way. The focal length for your main scope and the focal length of your guide scope. You put in what cameras you've got. It detects whether you've got a focus filter wheel in there, and if you've got an automatic focuser, and your location as well. And then enter. Again, it's a white screen, so that's really annoying. And then when you eventually get into the app, here's what it looks like. So it's a nice dark screen, which is what you would expect if you're doing astronomy. So there's a number of different features. I'm not going to go into those in great detail at the moment, but this is where any images that you take will appear. This is the shutter button, and this is your auto guiding information. So I'm going to go through the features in another review and show you what some of these different buttons at the top here do once it's all connected. Okay, so once you get it up and running, this is the auto guiding screen. So once it's calibrated and set, you get this green cross, very similar to PhD if you've ever used PhD for guiding, push here dummy. And you get a little graph down here to tell you how it's tracking. I haven't really touched any of the settings within the app, and I've just let it do what it's done, and it's worked really, really well for me in most cases. So that's the auto guiding screen. You can set yourself a shooting schedule. So here you can see I've used my filter wheel and I've done 60-second exposures, 10 of those with hydrogen alpha filter, and then I'm doing light, red, green and blue images, each of them 60 seconds, and set the amount that I want in those different filters. And then as you start to download your images, so here's the auto guiding information. At any point you just click on that to see what's happening within the auto guiding, and then you see the image start to appear. And then once you start taking images, you can see the image a bit clearer, it's picking up far fainter stars. And then set dither as well, which I'll explain when I talk about the ASIAIR Pro in a different video. So there you go. That's a quick overview of the ASIAIR Pro. It's a great bit of kit. It's going to enable me to get out and broadcast stuff across the web without me having to go out into the garden every 5 minutes to check its focus, to check everything's working right, because I know it's going to be fine in most cases. Okay, so don't forget, like the video, if you've liked the video that is, and of course don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And of course a great thanks to First Light Optics for sending this through to me, letting me have a play. Cheers guys, take care.